Today, Michael is speaking out of the storytelling manual in project number 4, which is called The Touching Story. His objectives include using techniques to arouse emotion and to become skilled in arousing emotion while telling a story. So, be prepared to cry. The time for Michael's speech is actually 6 to 8 minutes today. And you know how to do that, right?
No.
The way
There's no 6 to 8 minutes.
I think the way we usually do it is we hit 5 to 7 minutes, and then you pay attention. When it reaches 1 minute, you reset it and start it over.
Wow. Okay.
You have to pay close attention.
It's a hard job today.
It's a hard job.
And that's Michael. I'll turn it over to Leon.
Thank you. So without further ado, Michael, please.
This morning, I got up out of bed, got myself breakfast, got myself ready to go for the day, said goodbye to my wife, to my kids, hopped in my car, and drove to work. And this morning, I came this close to hitting another car and having a horrible car accident. In fact, I do this routine just about every day, and I always come this close to having a car accident. That's because I'm on the road, just like all of you when I drive my car, and when you drive your car, with hundreds of other people. And we're not just on the road together, we're passing, whizzing by each other in these hunks of metal that weigh thousands of pounds. And we put our trust in complete strangers that they're not going to slam their car into us. It's a miracle there aren't more car accidents. And if we're lucky, we make it through the day without having a car accident. But sometimes there are car accidents that happen. Who here has been in a bad car accident? Aren't they horrible, scary things? Screeching tires, shattering glass, metal crunching on metal. And worst of all, people get hurt. I've had my own experience with a bad car accident. I'll tell you, I don't ever want to be in another one. But what I want to do is tell you about that experience in the hopes that the next time you get in your car, you'll drive a little bit more carefully. The car accident that I was in actually happened a long, long time ago. I was only 8 years old. And although it was such a long time ago, I have very vivid memories of what happened. I was with my family and some friends of my family on a spring skiing vacation up in Oregon. And we were on the last day of our vacation, and it started so perfectly. The skies were blue, the air was crisp. We were really looking forward to a fun day of skiing. First thing in the morning, all of us jumped into 2 separate cars. The car that I got into, I was with my 16-year-old sister, her friend, my mom, and my mom's friend. The car that we were in was one of those Jeep Wagoneers, kind of the precursor to the modern-day SUV. And I was seated in the back seat in between my mom on one side, and my mom's friend on the other. In the front passenger seat was my sister, and then driving was her friend. And I imagine that, I don't know for sure, but I imagine that they were both talking like teenage girls would do. And I remember that we were driving up to the mountain on kind of a country highway, a small highway, with pine trees lining either side. And the road rose up a hill to a stop sign and an intersection with a bit larger highway. Well, apparently my sister's friend thought that she was already on that larger highway. Because as she drove up that hill, she went right through that stop sign, right through that intersection, without even slowing down. Now, I don't remember hearing anything. I don't remember smelling anything. I don't remember even any pain. But I remember what happened as though it was a slideshow. And in the first slide, we're driving down the road with the trees going by. In the second slide, I remember looking over my right shoulder, out the window, seeing cars approaching. In the third slide, I'm rolling across the pavement of the highway. As we had gone through that stop sign, of course, another car had slammed right into us. And the impact of that collision spun our Jeep Wagoneer around. And those of us sitting in the back seat, we weren't wearing our seatbelts. And I was thrown out of the car. Fortunately for me, I slid across the pavement. Unfortunately for my mom and my mom's friend, they were thrown out of that car into those trees that I told you were lining the side of the highway. Now I distinctly remember jumping up after sliding across the pavement and crying and looking for my mom. I didn't understand what had happened right then. I didn't understand where my mom was. I was calling out for my mom, "Mom, Mom!" But she wasn't answering. Later at the hospital, I was patched up for the road rash that I had suffered. That was it. That's all that happened to me. But I was still so scared, as any 8-year-old kid would be, as to what had happened to my mom. And it wasn't until a day or two later that my worst fears were finally alleviated, thank God, that I was allowed to see my mom in the hospital. I remember going into her room, though. She was strapped to her bed. In fact, she had a metal frame around her head and was bolted into her skull. So she was almost entirely immobilized. The extent of her movement was half the time she was looking up at the ceiling, and half the time she was staring down at the floor. That was it. It was a pretty scary experience for me being a kid to see my mom that way. I later learned that she had broken her back. Fortunately, she survived. And fortunately, although we didn't know at the time, she wasn't paralyzed. But still, a very serious injury. And a month later, she came home and she was able to walk. But she was still encased inside this metal frame on her whole upper body. They called it a halo cast. To me at the time, it looked like some sort of erector set had been constructed around her. And this is something she had to wear 24/7. She had to eat with it on. She had to somehow sleep with it on. Everything she did was with this contraption on her head. It must have been a difficult thing for her to have to endure. And for 6 months she was in it. Eventually she got it off, though. She recovered to the point where she could get it off. And she went on to lead her life. But of course, with an injury like that, it's going to have repercussions. And for her, naturally, it's been back pain since the day of that accident. And as I've watched her get older, the repercussions of an injury like that have increased. Where the back pain is worse, she can't walk as far, she can't stand for as long. And her back is starting to curve. And as I watch my mom deal with this, I've really come to appreciate how awful that car accident was. And how lucky I am that my mom survived. And I also appreciate how dangerous cars are. And that's the message I'm leaving with you today. Next time you get in your car and you drive down the road, think about the fact that you're responsible for this hunk of metal that's coming within feet of other cars. Not just other cars, but other human lives. So remember that and drive carefully. Thank you.